Were you a scratch DJ? I don't know anything about these rap records and stuff. Were you a scratch DJ, or was it scratch?
Scratch DJ, and in fact,
you scratched a few of my records though when you played them. I didn't want a guy that could scratch.
Those boring rockabilly songs, all in the same key and all in the same tempo.
There's a nuance. There's a variation.
I broke some of them.
Comprehend.
In fact, I could never comprehend that you guys cannot see the old the blues guys that you like, the old rhythm and blues and the contemporary stuff. But in answer to the question, I was never a scratch DJ. What I claimed to be was the fast break.
Oh, a fast break.
Fast break.
Is that like a basketball term?
You might say.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember once when I had that horrible show on KPFK and you subbed 1 week.
That's right.
And you played a song, Walk Right In, Walk Right Out. You know that song?
I might have done by Winoni, was it?
Is that who did that?
Winoni Harris. No, it wasn't. It was, come on up, Fein should know this.
I should know that. It
was Nellie Lutcher and...
It had the approximate smutty words that were... right on the breaks, they would lead you to expect cuss words. Isn't that the song?
They told me to read the FCC ruling because the title of the song, I don't know if this can go out over the air on cable, it was by another individual whose name escapes me. I'll think of it in a second. It's called If It Has a Pussy. Sensitive.
I think sensitive language disclaimer. That's
a sensitive language disclaimer.
Right. Yes.
So I would read it, and this was a sobbing falsetto ballad.
We should say that if anybody out there is sensitive to language, they probably shouldn't have listened to that last phrase.
You shouldn't have listened to this, or perhaps it should just have been beeped out. But I didn't just say that for shock value. That just happened to be the name of the song, and I really like the song.
It was a good song.
As a person
I appreciate your input, Brendan. This is very unusual. This is much different than last week.
Back to scratch and rap. The scratch, I never had anything to do. That's a New York technique, and it can be annoying unless you do it like I have a different style of DJing than that.
But what about?
It was never a scratch.
You were telling us a very amusing theory about a band in town, and the theory about how people can move up in show business with their band by aligning themselves with them a little earlier.
Oh yeah, it's kind of hanging out with the right people and stuff, and perhaps hooking up with old Spider here, and we started to get this band going, and Spider had this fantastic idea of playing second line music, right, Spider? Because we figured that if we played second line music, then we could really rise up in the world. Currently, we could get press. Bill Bentley would come down and see us. We played second line music.
So what type of second line music are you specifically?
Really heavy New Orleans inflected.
So what do you see as the progress that you could have made with that kind of beginning?
I suppose the first stage that after Bill would come down and discover us Bentley, maybe he could get us a gig at the Lingerie.
And do a tour of Mississippi.
Yeah, but no, that would come later. Following the gig at the Lingerie, then Bill would introduce us to Betty Miller of the Southern California Blues Society. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Now Betty would take us over to the Music Machine, and then we would get to meet Leon McNabb. And while we were hanging out there with Leon McNabb, we would see Los Lobos, and Caesar and Louie would really be our buddies. And they would really like us too, because we would be playing roots American music.
And you might come in on their coattails and get a Grammy nomination.
That's right. And we would get a gig. Caesar would like us so much that we would finish up opening for Los Lobos at the Music Machine. Now, maybe Dave Alvin would be hanging out there. He would come down and see us. We will ask Gene Taylor to play piano with us.
He might invite you to play golf.
No, he would say no. That's what Gene Taylor would say no, he would not play the piano. But Bateman would be there, Bill Bateman. Bateman would like us, recommend us to Uncle Phil. Then we would get a show with the Blasters. Backstage, we would meet Michael Hyatt. Michael Hyatt would invite us to a poetry reading at Richard Duardo's studio downtown LA. At Richard Duardo's studio downtown, at the poetry reading, Exene would be there. And Exene would really like my poetry. Yeah. Then we would get to open for X at the Greek Theatre, and then everybody was like us, Pete Kish from the Plimsolls and Tito from the Plugs. Everybody would come to
Chris Morris.
Gigs. Everybody would like it.
Chris Morris would do a coffee table book before you even have your first show.
Of Anglophobe. Chris Morris, the new breed. I think they used to have Anglophiles, now they have Anglophobes. And it would be one up for American music, for the roots And thank you, Bill Bailey. And thank you, Smiley Lewis and Winoni Harris.
And what would be the epitome of this experience?
The epitome of getting record deals with Slash. I think so. It would come up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Biggs would put us on Slash at first, though, because we might be an embarrassment
Maybe
like the Gun Club.
Chris D would put
we
you
would
on
have to put us
Upsetter.
on Ruby to find out, because Warners might not like it, you say.
How about Rhino?
It might be too free. And then Rhino for the compilations later on.
Yes.
We'll go on the Rhino compilation at
I
first.
think those of you who are new in show business and want to...
This is how to break into
I
it.
hope you were taking notes.
And
I've certainly
speaking
learned a
of
lot.
Chris Morris, like I haven't seen him in action, but I hear he yells out like Limeys go home and things like that at shows, which is what some of us older lifers used to do, like in '71 at a Rolling Stone show,
it is very
and so
puerile.
these youngsters like Chris Morris are doing it now.
It
The
is-
cycles repeat themselves in all
It's
ways.
very puerile. What he thinks he's been controversial.
Yes.
This is his idea of controversial Chris. Heavy controversy. Why one person writes a letter, or starting an argument with Michael Gilmore over the violent femmes. Can you believe this?
Well,
Two fully grown men arguing, almost coming to fisticuffs.
Chris
The lingerie, arguing over the violent femme.